Hi everyone, it's Sue LeBrun, the Groovy Widow. I wanted to share another insight from my experience after being widowed in 2012 and give you some tips if you like. Take it or leave it, but it was my experience. I remember it was not long after, because I was in transition, and as I mentioned in tip number one, not to make any big purchases like I did, buying a house my first year, to wait because things can change. You're going through an emotional roller coaster, and for me, I had some things that I needed to deal with from the apartment that I was moving into a house. So I started to give things away that belonged to my late husband, and over the last 6 and almost 7 years, I've given a lot of things away in the early stages of my grief, and I look back now and I think, wow, I should have maybe hung on to that a little longer. It's so easy to become, I don't like to, it's so easy to hang on to things, let's just put it that way, because they're personal to you and they mean something to you. But as time goes by, they will mean less and less, except that they mean a lot, to you personally, not to the rest of the family. They're just articles, they're just things. But so my recommendation is to purge, put things into boxes and label those boxes, and maybe just put them in storage for a while. Prioritize those boxes, things that you really, really want to hang on to because they meant something to both of you. So my tip number two is not to give away everything so quickly. Clothing they'll never use, yes, for sure, but hang on to some things that, in my case, I now have 2 grandchildren, and I certainly would have loved to pass on a couple things that meant a great deal to my late husband. It might mean something to my grandson someday, I don't know. But the year after I met Peter, my husband today, who was also widowed, I remember some of the emotional trauma he went through when a real estate agent said to him when he put up his house for sale, you have to purge everything. You have to make this house saleable, and it's staging, and you just have way too much stuff. So he and his late wife had a lot of beautiful things, and I remember him feeling almost incensed, insulted that his taste, his late wife's taste, couldn't be on display. But that's real estate, and that's, if you want to sell your house, you have to follow some of their advice. So I remember him feeling really upset this one particular day because it was still too raw for him, and he had a fit of being emotionally upset. And I look back now and I think, why did he have to give all that away? He just packed things up, put it in the back of the car, and he took it to the Salvation Army or the nearest neighborhood services depot, and they were beautiful articles, but he just felt like that's what he had to do. And no, it's not. You don't have to do it quite like that. Take your time. Just as I mentioned in tip number one, take your time when it comes to making any, large financial purchases like buying a house. Take your time because it's your life. Take your time in making those decisions. Nobody should rush you. But if you have to downsize, if you have to move, if you have to start clearing some space, or, it's an emotional roller coaster you're going to go through, just pack them up in boxes, label them, and then at some point in the future you can decide. And that's as simple as that. Don't rush. So tip number 2, just don't rush, take your time, and wish you all the best. Signing out, Sue LeBrun, the Groovy Widow.